Raising the Bets is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to Raising the Bets, a family podcast of pirates and penguins. We're a Catholic couple raising 5 kids outside of Boston. Join us as we share the joys and challenges of marriage, homeschool, and our adventures near and far as we make sense of the world and experience the best parts of our culture. I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
It occurs to me that I should make sure that I really put that comma in there because marriage homeschool would be weird. The joys and challenges of marriage, homeschool, and our adventures near and far.
I don't even know what marriage homeschool would be.
Well, actually, it's kind of what we do, right? We learning on the job. Anyway.
Okay.
My weekly foray into our intro. It's my new tradition. Every week I'll have something new weird to say about it. Anyway, So moving on. Let's talk about what we've been up to. We've actually just realizing that we really haven't been up to very much last week or so.
It's been a very quiet week.
It's the January doldrums. There's you can't. We live in New England. Unless we're like snow people, there are snow people, right?
But we haven't had snow, so even if you're snow people, you can't be.
Right. I was gonna say there are snow people and ice skating people, and people like to be outside. But even they're stuck inside because there's no snow and there's no ice because it's been 70 degrees out, and then it's 45 degrees out, which isn't cold enough to get ice, and so you just kind of stuck. And there's no more Patriots because they lost, and so there's no.
Aww.
Well, you don't really care about that,
no.
But like we're all like all these Bostonians are kind of wandering around going, well, what do we do now? Well, it's the middle of January. What are we supposed to do?
Gosh, no Super Bowl to look forward to. It's so sad.
It's like we've set up our lives surrounding this idea that every January we're watching the Patriots in the playoffs, and it's come to an end. Anyway, so what else has been going on? So this past Sunday at our parish, it's actually a kind of a New England thing, by the way. The Grand Annual Collection. It's actually really even a Boston thing. You don't see this in a lot of places.
I don't think I've ever encountered Grand Annual Collection.
It's in Bostonians don't realize this, but in other parts of the country they don't have this. But here in Boston, we have this tradition that goes back decades of the Grand Annual Collection, and it's this annual appeal by the pastor that everyone give a big chunk of cash to support the parish above and beyond your weekly money in the collection basket. It's sort of a big chunk of money for him to be able to use. In parishes that are wealthier, that's sort of a capital thing where they can use it on special projects. In parishes like ours, which is a poorer parish, this just isn't try to get the parish by, on a
try to balance the budget.
Try to just make the budget. Yeah. So we have this Grand Annual Collection, and our pastor, Father Michael, has kind of came up with this idea, and I'm not sure. It wasn't really explained. If I was going to have a criticism, it would be that I wish they'd explained it more.
It sounded like it was probably a good idea, but maybe we just kind of missed the memo.
Missed it or something. But they have this children's Grand Annual Collection where there was going to be one Sunday where the children would be participating and they would be giving money. And I think the idea is to inculcate in kids a sense of the necessity to support the parish financially, which I think is a great idea. Especially in this time where we have electronic offertory, where I don't put anything in the basket every week. And when I was a kid, my mom would put money in, and she'd give each of us a nickel or a dime or a quarter or whatever it was.
We've tried that with our kids, and we're really, really bad at remembering to do it.
I don't carry cash on me anymore. I mean, I know some people do. I don't carry cash on me. I don't have money on me. I don't have change in my pocket. I don't do that. So yeah, so it becomes impossible unless we remember ahead of time to set up cash to take to church. It's hard enough to just get us there. Anyway, so they have this children's Grand Annual. Sounds like a good idea. I'm sure they mentioned it several times. I forgot that this past Sunday was the children's Grand Annual. And,
it's been a whole week since the last time we heard the announcements.
Right.
And we didn't put it on the calendar or something.
And if I don't write it down, if I don't put it in my system, it doesn't get done. And so we split masses because we had a sick child. So,
yes. So I went to the later mass, and I can tell you about how exciting that was.
yes, you can tell me all about that in a second. But I went to the early mass with the other 4 kids, and it comes time for the offertory, and Father Michael's like, okay, all the children 14 and under come forward for a blessing and to put your money in the basket. And I'm like, oh no. And they all look at me like, what do we do? I'm like, well, go up and get a blessing. And they're like, oh, and one of them just was not having it.
I don't have anything to put in. He said I have to put something in, so I'm not going to do it.
And you've sprung this on me at the last minute, and I don't do last minute.
I didn't know that this was coming. What the heck is going on?
So that child
here?
did not move. So 3 of the children went up and were the only children at the mass. Like, that's it. We're the only kids who were ever at that mass. There were no children at the 8 o'clock mass for whatever reason.
Because it's 8 o'clock.
Because it's 8 o'clock in the morning. And so
we're the only family who's crazy enough to drag
kids out of bed at 6:30 in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning to get them to mass. Yeah,
pretty much.
So they are up there and getting the blessing, and there's a basket there. And they kind of get the blessing and turn around and come back without putting anything in the basket because they got nothing to give.
Because we're
that family.
Yeah. Oh man.
Sorry, Father. I wasn't able to talk to him after mass. I wanted to explain, but really, I mean, it was really awkward. I'm sitting there going,
so awkward.
I feel awkward. Like I would if I even thought about it, I would have given him some. But like a grand annual, this isn't just like a collection you put a nickel in either. I mean, just, like how much were they supposed to give? Like what was there were
no guidelines.
Very frustrating. So and embarrassing, but we're moving on from that, which is fine. I mean, it was already awkward because we got there too late for Bella to serve. Did I tell you about that?
Yeah,
she didn't serve because she went up there and she probably could have served, except she couldn't find the robe her size, which I believe that she couldn't find the robe her size, and she gave up and came out, and so they must have been like doing the laundry or something. But it was in the laundry.
Well, she is the tall one, so
yeah. She probably could have grabbed one of the priest's albs and been okay.
Right.
So
anyway, I ended up going to the later mass where we had a baptism
on the Feast of the Baptism of the
Lord, which was cool. We had a baptism, and we had the children's grand annual collection, and we also had all the children who were preparing for First Communion come up for a special blessing.
A second special blessing.
Another special blessing, and they all had a rock that they presented to represent the hardness of our hearts that we hope that God will soften.
Oh.
So there were a whole bunch of kids who came up with rocks, and then like a couple kids who like forgot their rocks or something. And so like when we came up for the grand annual collection, like some of the kids still had rocks. We're trying to figure out where they were supposed to put it, and like, do I put the rock in the basket, or they had like a little cloth that the kids were supposed to put the rocks in. And some of the kids put their rocks in the basket where the collection was going to go, and it was very confusing.
It was chaos.
It was total chaos. And then after they brought up their rocks, they were supposed to go to the baptismal font and bless themselves with water from the font to remind them of their baptism, which was kind of a nice gesture. We're having a baptism, we're remembering our baptism, but it was chaos because the kids didn't know what the heck they were doing, and the parents didn't really know what they were doing, and there was like this crowd of kids,
40 kids all trying to get in,
all trying to get to the baptismal font at once.
And I would have got my phone out in preparation for the thing going over and having the tidal wave of holy water.
That did not happen.
Oh my gosh, that would have been awesome. I'm glad I didn't miss that.
Yeah, it was a bit chaotic. The mass ended up being almost an hour and a half.
Wow. I'm gonna say, so it's like a short mass for Father Michael, what he's probably used to back in Nigeria. I'm gonna say it's with the rocks thing. It's probably a good thing it wasn't the gospel of the stoning of the adulterous woman.
That would have been yeah,
giving the kids the wrong idea. Stone her. Ah!
Yeah, no, but so it was nice. I mean, there were several people who said hi to me, like, oh, we haven't seen you in a long time because you're no longer going to that mass.
Right. They had changed the mass schedule, and we got split into the different masses.
Yeah.
So
it was nice.
It can be parishes can be like it's not only just like different parishes. You can almost be in a whole different parish based on what mass you go to.
Right. Because most people don't go to a different mass time.
There are some people, I've realized this when I worked at a parish, There's some people who go to anything, like any mass that just happens to be convenient this week.
Right. And I know
they go to anything.
I know people like that. Like whichever mass we can drag ourselves to, sort of.
Yeah, we decided to get up late this week, so we're going to I can't do that. I need a schedule. Boom, boom, boom. I need to go when it's time.
Yeah.
And frankly, I like the early mass.
I do too. I don't love dragging the kids out of bed for it, but
although I find it's easier to get them to mass at its early mass, probably because they're older, not because it's the earlier. But I think it's easier to get to mass earlier than it was when it was an hour and a half later. I think.
Well, we're not trying to do breakfast before mass, so
which was a problem. Yeah,
that helps.
Yeah. So that helps.
Yes, because some people would wait to take their showers until like after they'd had breakfast.
Oh, those darn kids procrastinating. Wait, they don't take showers. I take a shower. Oh, I see what you're doing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I saw that one. So, in any case, moving on from criticizing me. The other thing that happened this week is I got a parcel delivery box from Amazon. Now, not a box delivered from Amazon. We get those all the time. This is a box that sits outside your front door
for the parcels to be put in.
For the parcels to be put in, so they're not just sitting there for the porch pirates to come along, harg, and to...
because the porch pirates won't notice the box that says deliveries on it and think to open it.
Except they don't know whether there's anything in it. Like if you see a box there, you say, "That's a box. I'm going to go take the box." But if there's a parcel delivery box, it could be empty. It could be full. Who knows?
But what's to keep them from opening it to find out?
You might get caught. Like the opportunity,
they might get caught.
The opportunity cost is the different equation. Like,
okay,
like I don't know if it's worth it to go risk it to go open the box. So I'm not going to go and risk opening the box.
Okay,
and getting caught opening the box
guess.
And nothing in there. Whereas if I see a package there and take it, get it?
I suppose.
Well, anyway.
I mean, I'm not like the kind of person who steals things from porches, so I guess I don't really understand the mentality.
We're penguin pirates. We're a different kind of pirate.
Right.
But and there are also third-party locks that you can get that apparently the delivery guys can open, and or it's unlocked until they put a package in there and then it locks behind it.
But that only works if you've only got one person putting packages in.
Right, exactly. You get the FedEx guy comes and he's like, "I ain't got to open." Well, it doesn't matter because they don't put the boxes in the delivery box.
Well,
anyway.
This is true.
We've had 2 Amazon deliveries. I haven't had a UPS delivery yet, but we've had 2 Amazon deliveries since I laboriously put that box together. And both times they throw the package on the ground next to the box with the big sign on it that says "Deliveries."
I could have told you that was what was going to happen. I mean, yeah.
What is wrong with people?
They don't read.
So now I have to buy another sign that says, "Hey, driver, see the box marked delivery? Put the box in it." Lift the lid, toss it in.
I guarantee you that if you buy the sign, it's not going to change the behavior.
I bought the sign; it's on its way. We'll see.
Now,
luckily, I didn't buy the parcel delivery box. I was sent it as a review unit. You can imagine how glowing my review is going to be based on my experience so far. Amazon says, "Hey, you want to review this parcel delivery box for us?" I said, "Sure, send it along."
Yeah,
maybe you should tell your drivers to put the package in the box. Anyway, so that was the other thing, my other frustration this week. So yeah, that was it. So what else is going on? We get coming up this Wednesday. Bella's got something fun that she's doing.
Oh yes. Well, we signed her up for an online class. This is her first attempt at an online class. So.
Right. This is a formal, organized class with a syllabus and schedules and stuff she has to do to turn into a teacher and discussions with other students. And it's a ornithology class, which is right up her alley.
Yeah, it's with Homeschool Connections, which does a lot of online homeschool classes.
And the teacher's a friend of ours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we're not too worried. Although we want to make a good impression too.
but
it's birds.
Bella loves birds,
yeah.
And I figured it would be a nice, gentle start to having an experience of one online classes, but also having formal class without me being the instructor.
Right.
She's
getting close to high school.
Yes.
We're going to need to start getting her used to this sort of educational experience.
Yes.
Gentle start. So it's a online class, so it meant that I had to get her Chromebook ready to connect, which was the technology. Why can't it be? I'm a tech guy.
I'm still a little nervous about whether it's actually going to work.
Yeah. I'm intending to be here for the start of the class, so to iron out any potential problems. I actually have a Father Chip and I are going to go see 1917 for the Secrets of Movies and TVs podcast, but I will be here for the start of it anyway to iron out any problems. I hope, and hopefully there won't be any. But it uses Adobe Connect and Flash, and when I saw that it was like downloading Flash, Adobe Flash, I'm like, oh, I mean, Adobe's even like getting rid of Flash. So I don't know what the long-term plan for that is, but so we'll see. Hopefully it'll work. The test worked. We had to do a test thing, and that worked. So.
The test worked. That's a good sign.
Yeah. All right. Now, so the big part of what we've been doing this last week, since we haven't gone anywhere and done anything, we've been cooking.
Yeah, for some reason the cooking bug has hit. Like, as in I want to try some new recipes. I don't know. I've been in a really major cooking slump through the holidays, and then suddenly I'm seeing recipes that I want to try, and I've got energy to try them. It's kind of weird.
So the first big one that you made was now, where did you get the idea for making this Japanese dish called okonomiyaki?
A friend of mine on Facebook, yay, social media, shared a recipe. And I said, that looks interesting. It looks kind of like a latke with cabbage instead of potatoes. And that looks kind of fun. I want to try that. And then, so we started talking about it. My friend and I, my friend is half Japanese. So she's kind of like,
it's part of her culture.
Her culture. Well, yep. She didn't grow up eating this stuff, but she wants to sort of explore it. So we talked about it, and she said, I bet you could use bagged pre-shredded coleslaw mix for this. And I said, that's interesting. I've got a bag of coleslaw in my refrigerator right now. And so I looked at the recipe and I said, well, I can't do everything in this recipe, but I can sort of do the basics. I can do coleslaw with a batter in a pan. And I looked at several, right, as a start, just like a sort of a rough start. And I looked at several different recipes, and another friend who had spent some time in Japan helpfully shared me a video that really got me excited, because like watching people actually cook it, like that was really fun.
Right.
And
then I ordered the okonomi sauce for it.
Yeah. So I went for it. Now, I ran into a couple problems with the recipe I was following. Made enough batter for a pound of cabbage, and the bag I had of pre-shredded cabbage was less than a pound. So I already had too much batter for the cabbage.
And then
it also
then you didn't have enough eggs.
I didn't have enough eggs, so I was down 2 eggs. But also, like, it had you like mix in the water into the flour and then toss with the cabbage and then put the eggs in, and there was no way that was happening because I put in the water and there was not nearly enough water to make anything. This was like a dough.
It was supposed to be a batter, not a dough.
It was not a batter. So I don't know if somebody who wrote the instructions did them in the wrong order, like you were supposed to put the eggs in first.
It's supposed to add the eggs first.
I think they must have just written the recipe wrong.
Yeah.
This was not the only time I had problems with a recipe when it was not well written this week.
I saw someone complain about that today.
Anyway, so we tried it out. It was a little bit undercooked in the middle. Okay, a lot undercooked in the middle. It was basically pancake batter in the middle.
There was some technique that we missed. A little bit of like when you flip it, you're supposed to kind of open it to let the steam out.
Yeah, and also one of the online videos we saw later, they actually covered it with a lid to like sort of let it steam.
And they cooked it a lot longer than you did on each side.
Right, I didn't want it to burn, and I think cooking it lower with a lid would have been better. Anyway, so the upshot was it tasted really good.
Yes.
Even though they were underdone, we ate all of it.
And we didn't put several of the possible ingredients in it. So it can have pork belly, which is basically bacon.
Uncured bacon.
And the nori flakes, the seaweed flakes, which we're getting. Yes,
I would love. I love seaweed, so that would be a great
tempura
addition.
bits, which I'm not sure how to get unless I go to a Japanese or an Asian grocery store, which we have around here, but we'd have to make a special trip. I couldn't find it online. Well, I couldn't find it online.
I definitely want to try the tempura bits because I love tempura. Yum.
And the Kewpie mayonnaise, which I did, that finally came in, so we have that now. So yaki, the okonomiyaki. Yaki means cooked on a griddle. Okonomi basically means as you like it or what have you. So it's really kind of whatever you want to add to it. You could put shrimp or chicken or anything in it. Really, I mean, it's one of these dishes where it could have anything. It could be there's a basic base to it, and then you add whatever you want. And you're right. I mean, it was really surprisingly good. The sauce really makes it. I really have to say, and in some ways, it's a lot like an egg foo young.
I've never had egg foo young, so I can't speak to that. But it actually did kind of remind me a little bit of latkes, like the technique of shredded vegetable with a batter kind of holding everything together, like an eggy, floury batter holding it together that you fry in oil.
Yeah.
Basic.
Although a lot less batter in a latke.
Yes, much less batter in a latke, but similar idea. I mean, the basic sort of.
So what? Someone asked, "Oh, do you have a recipe for it?" We don't. We're developing. We're going to try it again, and kind of get it set, and then we'll put something online or something.
I've got another bag of shredded cabbage in the refrigerator because hope springs eternal.
And we have the other ingredients that we haven't got. We hadn't had at the time, so we're going to try it again because this is worth trying again. So you made okonomiyaki, and then I went and said, okay, now I'm going to make the Japanese dish that I've been thinking of making, tonkatsu, which is a pork cutlet, a fried pork cutlet. Well, it turns out once I finish it, this is basically pork schnitzel. It's like Japanese. You take a flattened piece of pork, like a pork chop, you egg it, flour it, put it in panko breadcrumbs.
No, you flour it, egg it, put it in panko. This is what you did wrong in the first try.
I got the order wrong. Right? Flour it, egg it, panko breadcrumbs, fry it in a pan, which was fine. The big addition is the bulldog sauce that goes with it. That's intended.
It's like a sort of tangy barbecue-y sauce.
Tangy barbecue-y.
It kind of reminds me of Arby's sauce.
Right, the Arby's roast beef sauce. Yeah. And then we serve that on rice bowls.
Basically, the kids all liked it because they've all had pork schnitzel lots of times, and they have all had rice bowls with like little make it yourself rice bowls. And so this was basically just another variation on something that they've had before.
Does the pork schnitzel that you make, does it have breadcrumbs?
It does not have breadcrumbs.
See, I kind of like the crunch of the breadcrumbs, the panko.
Right, but Lucy can't have them.
Well, yeah, that's the problem.
So the pork schnitzel I make with brown rice flour,
right,
and no egg. It's just
floured.
No, not
and cooked in oil.
Yeah, not actually breaded.
Right. Yeah, that is the problem. So, all right. But I mean, it was okay. I mean, I finished the leftovers today,
and I was very glad not to have to cook. So.
Yeah, that was the day you weren't feeling well, so I did all the cooking.
Yeah.
And
I spent the entire day in bed. Did not get up.
So this weird low grade that went around. Not really bad, but not feeling great either.
Yeah.
There is a tonkatsu donbori dish, which you cook it with egg and noodles and stuff. So there's you take this as one part of the larger dish. So that's a possibility to look at later. But I was glad to have done it. Then we did the next day, continuing on our cooking journey. We jumped across the world to Cornwall in England, and you made pasties. Because we'd had a pot roast.
Right. So we had pot roast. Now generally all the kids like pot roast, but this particular pot roast, I think I might have overcooked, and it was a little stringy and a little dry. And so
it didn't get all eaten up.
It did not get eaten up. In fact, there was a huge chunk of pot roast left, like a pound of pot roast left or more. And I looked at it and I'm like, nobody is going to eat this. What the heck do I do with this gigantic chunk of meat?
What do you do with leftover pot roast?
Right. So I had a brilliant idea.
We'd been wanting to do this for a while.
We've been wanting to do our first idea was leftover pulled pork.
Yes.
Like, what do you do with leftover pulled pork? And we thought, like, what if we wrapped it in dough and made like a pasty?
Or, yeah, I mean, every culture basically, apparently, has a sort of stuffed bread dish, like something you have dough, you have a meat, you cover it with the dough, and you
dumpling, empanada, pasty,
right, samosa. Everybody has it. So
One friend online shared a theory that it was the Mongols who invented the dough with stuff in it, and
so they could eat it while they rode.
Right, and then they spread it all over.
That feels like an urban legend to me.
I'm not sure I buy it, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So anyway, I Googled a bunch of recipes. This is what I do when I want to try something new. I don't find a recipe. I find a bunch of recipes and then sort of triangulate and do my own thing with like help from the recipes.
You're like a test cook from America's Test Kitchen.
I don't know. I can never follow a recipe as written. I just can't. I always have to fiddle.
Mm-hmm.
So this turned into... It took a lot longer to cook than I had intended. So it was kind of a late dinner.
Because
you
made the dough from scratch.
I made the dough from scratch. Now, this was a lot of dough.
Yeah.
It was 6 cups of flour, an entire pound of butter. That's 4 sticks of butter cut into 6 cups of flour. This was a lot of, like, I really worked out my arm with my pastry cutter here. And then, interestingly enough, it used, for the liquid to hold the dough together, it used chicken broth.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. It sort of made a nice flavor for this.
So it was very good.
Buttery, flavory. And I actually forgot an ingredient in the dough because it also called for cider vinegar, which I totally left out.
Huh.
But this was the other recipe where it didn't have enough liquid. And so I ended up adding a whole bunch of extra water, like more than just the cider vinegar I left out, but I added a whole bunch more water, like almost a cup more water than the recipe called for.
Interesting.
So I don't know what the heck was up with that. Like somebody wrote the recipe down wrong.
Like, so speaking of that, again, someone was talking about that. They had a recipe that they were following, and it calls like a cup of chopped carrots in the ingredients. And like at the end of the recipe, they realized that they never told them what to do with the carrots. So I had this cup of chopped carrots sitting there.
Oops.
What am I supposed to do with this? Okay, take the cup, throw it over your shoulder. Okay, you're done. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
That sounds like an I Love Lucy recipe.
Yeah.
So I made the pastry dough. Now I did this all in the wrong order. I should have made the pastry dough first and then chilled it, and then
did the filling.
But I did the filling first. So anyway. So for the filling, I cut up my pot roast into chunks. I also cut up some carrots and onions, and I sauteed those until they were nice and soft. I had a bunch, like 2 big russet potatoes, which I diced, and I cooked in the microwave until they were nice and soft.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I threw the rest of the pot roast juice into the carrots and onions, and then I threw the potatoes in, and I added some wine and some Worcestershire sauce and some more salt because the pot roast wasn't quite salty enough.
You had forgot to add salt.
I forgot to add salt. No, I did add. No, I added salt.
Oh, it was the chili that you forgot the salt.
Anyway.
Yes, that was a different recipe.
And what did I do? Oh, and some cornstarch to thicken it up. So it was very thick. It was not runny at all. There was no like juices.
You don't want
out.
your pasties or any type of stuffed bread thing to have a runny interior.
No,
makes a mess.
So it was very thick. It was
right,
like mashed potatoes consistency almost, except with like chunks of meat. And then I threw in some peas.
Pockets.
Threw some peas in at the end, which Anthony was not thrilled with when he saw them. He's like, "You put peas in it," but he ate it.
He did. In fact, they loved it. So when you did the folding, when you did the stuffing with the dough, you crimped the edges twice, right?
Right. So what you do is you sort of roll the dough out into a round, and then you brush the outside of it with egg white, and you put the filling in the middle, and then you fold it over, and you push it down like where you've put the egg white, and then you fold it over, and then you brush it with egg white again, and then you fold it over again, and then you crimp it.
This is not going to leak.
This thing was solid. It
right.
did not, none of my pasties leaked. I was very happy with that. And the dough came out, like after it was baked, it was crunchy, flaky, buttery.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
I was really thrilled because I've never had real luck with pastries. Usually when I make pies, I just buy the pre-made pie crust. This was it was a lot of work, but it was worth it.
These were pretty big too. I mean, you could have made them half as big as they were.
Yeah, this was like 9-inch circles. So these were big.
Yeah.
Or maybe 8-inch circles. I think I didn't quite get up to
So
9.
we really only ate half of the ones you'd baked.
Right. I baked 8 gigantic pasties.
So we reheated them the next day for lunch, and they were even. In fact, I think they were a little better.
They were better because I did the short end of the cooking time, because it was getting late and it was like dinner and you guys had to go to Scouts.
Right, that's what it was. It was Tuesday.
Like, why was I trying a new recipe on Scout night? I don't know. I was crazy. I was crazy. But it worked. We got dinner in. Everybody ate it. Everyone was happy. Except for Lucy, who ate tacos.
Because she couldn't eat it. This is our perennial problem. But they were really good. I mean, they went like that. The next day they were gone. This is definitely a recipe I will be making again.
And
a little adjustments, but definitely. And I like that you made the dough from scratch. I think it was worth it. Like you said, this was really good dough.
Right. Really we had debated about it, just using pre-made pie crust.
Yeah.
I was just worried about how to make a pre-made pie crust into. I wanted smaller pasties, not one gigantic thing.
Which is what you ended up doing.
Ironically, we ended up with a pretty big. But they were smaller than a pre-made pie crust.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
But yeah, they were still a little bit bigger than I would have ideally liked.
Okay. And then the other new recipe we tried this week is something that you've been meaning to make with Anthony for ages.
So you subscribe to Cook's Country magazine, and
I subscribe to Cook's Country, Cook's Illustrated, and Milk Street Kitchen.
And the kids love reading these magazines, especially Anthony. He loves flipping through this magazine. Bella and Sophie do too, and even Ben, I think, looks at the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
But Anthony really, and now Anthony does not like French fries.
He does not like potatoes. This is a boy. He doesn't like peas. He doesn't like potatoes.
Right. But he loves onion rings. When he discovered onion rings, it was like magic.
When we go to one of our favorite restaurants, Jake's Seafood, he always orders the popcorn shrimp with onion rings instead of French fries.
When he realized that he could order onion rings, even though they're not on the kids' menu, he could order onion rings and get them at restaurants. He was so happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so he saw this recipe for extra crispy onion rings. And he brings the recipe to me, I'm in my room reading, and he's like, Mom, look at this. Shows me the recipe. I'm like, do you want to make that? Oh yeah, he wants to make this. He is burning. Then of course we go to the grocery store. They do not have large onions. They only have little tiny micro onions. And that was for 3 weeks. They did not have large onions. And then they finally had gigantic onions, and I got some. I got a whole bunch of them. It turned out when I actually looked at the recipe, it only called for 2 onions, but I had 6 gigantic jumbo onions.
Enough onion rings to feed the football team.
Right. So we got the onions, and then we were just way too busy to devote an entire.
Plus, we had that, like you said, that whole time through the Christmas season where just apart from the necessary cooking, making extra things just was not on the. It's not going to happen.
Right. So finally, we had a nice Sunday afternoon, not doing anything else.
My mom and dad came over to visit.
Right. So I was able to sort of visit and be sociable while puttering around in the kitchen, which was sort of the perfect combination because Anthony and I got everything mixed up before they arrived. Mm-hmm. And then all that was left to do was the frying. And I did the frying. He was not very interested in the actual cooking process. He might have been if Grandma and Nanu hadn't been there, but
yes, Nanu to tell the stories.
Right. So anyway, we got to serve our onion rings to his grandparents, which was perfect. And they were at first, well, I'll just try a little one. Okay, I'll try another one. I'll have another one. And your dad was like, no, I don't want any. And then I explained it was Anthony's recipe and he'd made it. And he's like, well, maybe I'll try one.
Oh, he liked them.
He liked them.
He had more than one.
He had more than one. But he was not going to eat them at first. He was like, oh, I don't need that.
And these are good. These were really crispy, as I mentioned. In fact, I would like this that crunchy exterior on a fried chicken or fish. I mean, it was really crunchy.
So the technique was buttermilk. I used 4 cups of buttermilk, which was basically a container.
Way more than I think it ended up being more than you needed.
But you need enough to be able to submerge the onion rings.
Okay.
But there was a good cup and a half, 2 cups of buttermilk left.
Right.
When we were done frying them. So you dip the onion rings in the buttermilk, and then you put them in a paper bag with your flour, cornstarch, baking soda, baking powder, and salt mix, and you shake them up in the paper bag. This was really fun, a big, gigantic.
Perfect for a little boy, an 8-year-old boy.
And then you put them onto a baking tray, and you kind of separate them out, and then you put them back in the buttermilk. Then you put them back in the bag, and you shake them up again. So now they've been coated twice. And And then you fry them in batches, small batches.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the onions were cooked through. Like a lot of restaurant onion rings.
Even, yeah.
A lot of restaurant onion rings, like the onions are still kind of raw
They're
tasting.
raw and almost slippery.
Slimy.
I don't want to say slimy because that implies gross, but just not cooked.
Right. These onions were thoroughly cooked.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of the Moon Jellies book that the kids have about the clam shack where they make the fried clams. It kind of reminded me of that a little, and the onion rings. If anything, they might have been a little overcooked.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's really hard to regulate the frying oil on our stove. It's an electric stove.
After the first batch, I honestly had got out the thermometer and then I forgot to check the temp.
To make sure it wasn't too high. Yeah.
And I kind of, it said golden brown, so I was really going for that nice golden brown, crispy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to undercook them.
Yeah.
Because I hate undercooked onion rings.
Right. No, I mean, they're still good. It was still really good. But yeah, so it's a cook's country recipe. So that was that I gotta recommend that. So that, and I mean, that's 4 different things we did in the past week. This is the past week. So we'll see what's. I don't know if we'll be able to maintain this.
Probably
pace.
not. I will probably just give in and do hot dogs all week.
Now, the other thing that you started doing this week was getting the girls more involved with making dinner.
Yeah, I sort of realized that if I wanted to do some of the recipes that I wanted to do, I would need some help doing sort of the
prep work.
The prep work or the sort of other stuff.
Sous chef.
Yes. So it started off the night I was making chili, and I wanted to make cornbread to go with the chili, and I wanted to do something else as a side.
Was that the okonomiyaki?
Oh, that was the okonomiyaki night.
Right.
I wanted to make the okonomiyaki, and I didn't want to make them as our main course for dinner because I wasn't sure how they were going to turn out. So I wanted the chili to be our main dish, but I needed time. I couldn't do the chili and the cornbread and the okonomiyaki. I could do like 2 of the 3, but not all 3.
Right.
So I grabbed Isabella and Sophia and I said, you are going to start helping me cook, because they disappear when I'm cooking and they go play games in their room.
Or write novels, they're
write novels. I said, I'm going to, you are being assigned cornbread for tonight. And at first they were like, what are you talking about? But Bella was like, okay, I guess we can do this. We can do this. And Sophie was like, I don't know what we're doing. I absolutely refuse. And then eventually she sort of warmed up and she helped. And in the end, they both had fun. They had fun. We only had to throw away a couple cups of flour and cornmeal because Isabella accidentally
she put
5 tablespoons of salt instead of 5 tablespoons of sugar.
Yeah.
Yes, I make my cornbread with sugar. Hush.
Yes.
It's good.
She's a Southerner. Now, there's a reason for that. Do we want to get into
No.
There's a reason historically why Southerners don't put as much sugar in their cornbread as they used to in the past, but that's a whole nother topic. The sweet cornbread. Any case, which is nice. So it's good that the girls were starting. We know other families where their kids start, helping cook dinners at younger ages, 11, 10, that sort of thing. I wish we could have done that. I'm not sure Bella would have been ready for that at that age.
Yeah, but I figured now seems to be a really good time because they're already doing a lot more cooking with their scout troop.
Right.
And so I'm sort of trying to capitalize on you guys are doing this in scouts, you can do it at home too.
Yeah. Right. And that's really what's been good. So hopefully that will take some of the burden off. Right.
Tonight I handed them a bag of apples and some vegetable peelers. And I said, you're peeling the apples for applesauce because I don't have time to do this.
And they did it.
And again, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to peel apples. And I'm like, you don't know how to peel apples? You just you take the thing and you scrape it across and the skin comes off.
Figure it out. It's not rocket science.
So eventually they figured it out. They even let Lucy do it. And then I had them cut the apples up and dice them. And yes, we ended up with more skin than I kind of actually went back and I sort of cleaned up a little bit after they'd gone back to their room. But they did it. They cut up the apples for the applesauce, and I was really happy to not have to do it all myself. And I realized that I've sort of gotten into the habit of doing things myself rather than teaching the kids how to do them. And maybe it's just sort of the mindset of I don't have time to stop and teach them, but I really need to make the time to stop and teach them. Otherwise, they don't know how to do things like peel apples.
We are not going to end up with children who don't know how to cook. That's
right. And that's the bottom. And the bottom line is you have to know how to do this. You have to learn, because at some point you're not going to be living at home. And I don't care what situation you end up in. If you're married, you're single, religious life, religious people need to learn how to cook.
Yes. You could become one of the Trappistines who make candy.
but also they all take turns in the kitchen rotation.
Right.
Monasteries, convents, everyone takes a turn in the kitchen and needs to know how to cook. And the whole community suffers when the person who's in the kitchen.
If you're a priest, you need to know how to make yourself a meal.
Right.
I've met too many priests who don't know how to cook a meal for themselves without the cook coming in to do it for them.
And, you go off to college and you are completely dependent on your roommates or the cafeteria or takeout because you don't know how to boil an egg. That's not going to happen.
Oh, I remember my roommate, Kevin. Kevin was a stockbroker before he came to grad school, and in a stockbroker in New York. And he had one pan in his kitchen, which was used for reheating takeout food.
Oh,
otherwise, everything was takeout.
Don't be Kevin.
One day I was making brownies out of a box. And he's like, no, it was like I was doing magic. It's like, if I bought a box of brownie mix, would you make some for me? I'm like, dude, I'll show you how to do it.
You are in college. There are directions on the box. This is not that hard.
School, dude. You can make a box of brownies. It was very funny.
Speaking of which, maybe I should buy some boxed mixes and teach them how to make boxed brownies, because I don't
boxed brownies, boxed cake. I mean,
because I never cook from a box. I did, but I did a lot when I was a teen.
It's not something we do, but it builds confidence in following directions, using an oven, using the utensils without having to worry about all the other, making sure I've got salt instead of sugar and that sort of thing.
Right.
So yeah, I think getting them to start doing some of those more simple things, those simple recipes, is a great way to get them to doing this. I remember being shocked at how easy it was to make chocolate chip cookies.
Right.
It's like magic. Then you make it that was easy. I used to go when I was in school. I had a job working in the business office in Franciscan University, Steubenville, and in the summer I worked full time. And I would come home at lunch sometimes and make chocolate chip cookies during lunch and then go back with them. And the ladies who I worked with in the office, they thought I walked on water. They were like, you went home and made chocolate chip cookies and brought them back? I was like the favorite student worker.
See, I would have thought of chocolate chip cookies as taking more time than you would have on a lunch break.
I was able to do it. I mean, I lived right off campus. So it was 2 minutes from the office. And it was I don't know. It was really quick. I'm not sure
how
why.
long was your lunch break?
An hour. I don't know. I remember at least once, maybe a couple times doing that. Just going home, throwing things together, and coming back with cookies.
Wow.
That were still hot.
Still warm from the oven.
Again. If you want to make a good impression on people, feed them good food. That's all I'm saying. All right, so that's the food section.
That's pretty much really all we did this week. So
right. Well, I did watch some TV.
Oh.
I watched. So Disney Plus has the Aladdin remake, the live action Aladdin on TV. With Will Smith and other people who nobody knows.
Yeah, Will Smith.
Yeah, Will Smith as the genie. I will say, Will Smith was good. It was very recognizably Aladdin, the Robin Williams animated Aladdin. It was the connection was there. They made sure to bring in most of the best jokes, including a lot of Robin Williams's ad libs. They brought them in. They made the genie a lot less alien and more human relatable. He's still a genie, but they made him a person more, with motivation and character, which was interesting.
He's kind of a gag in the animated movie.
Right. But one of the things that they did, and I remember Father Roderick talking about this when he saw the movie, that they apparently Disney decided, well, the original Aladdin was too much about Aladdin, not enough about Jasmine, and therefore we have to pump up the Jasmine character, the princess.
Pump up the Jasmine.
Pump up the jazz. Pump up the Jasmine. Pump it up. Anyway, you did that, not me.
I did. I brought that on myself.
You did. So they turned her into this sort of this feminist icon where she wants to be sultan. She doesn't want to just be married off, but she wants to be able to become sultan and rule in her own right. And
it's probably just as well I didn't watch this with you because I'm a big fan of the original Arabian Nights stories.
Right. Well, and I really love the original Aladdin, and the music is fantastic. The Menken, and what's his name, Alan Menken, and the other guy, their music for this, it was awesome. It was awesome. The original soundtrack, but there was this song added. Like they gave Jasmine this new song. Speechless, in fact. I think it was like speechless, like total, like a Hamilton ripoff or something. I don't know. But like where you won't take away my voice and I will stand up and speak. And it was this like feminist anthem in the middle of this movie. And I'm like, the movie's called Aladdin.
Not Jasmine.
It's not Jasmine. It's Aladdin. I don't know. It just bugged me. It's because it changed it to, I mean, not that you can't ever change the story and retell it, but these remakes are very clearly, we're taking the animated movies we made before and turning them live action. These are not total reboots. These aren't.
But if you want to make a movie about a girl who wants to be sultan, that would be an interesting movie. But that's not Aladdin because Aladdin is about a boy who finds a lamp.
Right. And what kind of bugs me
and his name is Aladdin.
They only do this because the movie was originally mostly about a boy. Because when Mulan is coming out this year, a live action remake of Mulan, well, they're not taking the boy and making his role bigger.
There is no boy in Mulan.
Well, there's the love interest that she kind of has.
There's a love interest?
Wasn't there a guy? It's been ages since I saw Mulan.
I don't remember a guy.
It was one of the soldiers that she kind of likes, and then in the end, after we found out that she's really a girl, they're going to live happily ever after or something.
I do not remember.
I don't know. Maybe I just assumed that because it's Disney and that's how it usually worked. But they don't take one of the boy characters and pump up them and make him more important in Mulan. No, it's about Mulan, the girl. So it kind of bugs me a little bit that they did that to this. That said, the actors were pretty good. They were not objectionable. The CGI was strangely kind of not that good. I have to say there was a couple times where they had like how in the animated thing Aladdin is that does like this crazy parkour through the city, where he jumping off of buildings and doing all kinds of crazy acrobatics. And there were times where they're showing him doing this stuff. It was like really glaringly obvious this was animated, like that this was an animated figure. It did not look at all smooth or like lifelike. Like it was jarring. That and when they had the genie as the blue guy with the smoke legs, the smoke. It like the body, like it was very obvious that it's like Will Smith's head on an CGI body. It was really jarringly uncanny valley. It was really kind of weird. But like I said, it was all right. It was nothing. It wasn't objectionable, but it wasn't as good as the original, of course. But Will Smith was fine. Robin Williams cannot be beat. I mean, he's the best of that.
Right. Robin Williams is sort of sui generis.
Yes. The other thing I watched, I watched some other things, but the other thing, the new that I watched was a Netflix series called The Movies That Made Us, which is really the movies that, I think the us in that is Gen X, my generation. So, because there was a previous series called The Toys That Made Us, which is about the toys that we had as kids. So this is the movies that made us. It looks at a handful, the first season looks at a handful of movies from the 80s that were really big. And one of them, the first one is Dirty Dancing. And so I was looking at it. I'm sure I saw Dirty Dancing once. I mean, I was 18, 19 when it came out. But I kind of know what happens. I don't remember watching it. If I did watch it, I wasn't paying attention, and I think I was pretty confused by it, like the story.
Unlike me, I was not one of those girls who loved Dirty Dancing, but I grew up in a time when you couldn't not have seen it like a dozen times.
Yeah. It
was like on repeat on HBO, and I don't know, I just know that I saw it over and over and over again, like maybe one summer when I was like home bored during the day with nothing to do except watch stupid shows on HBO.
Well, in retrospect, it was fascinating to see how this movie got made because it almost didn't. It went to every major studio. Every major studio rejected it. And then when Warner Brothers picked it up, the very next day, the president who picked it up got fired. Probably not for that, but that meant they weren't going to make it. So it ended up getting made by this company called Vestron Video, which was a direct-to-video film producer in Stamford, Connecticut, not in Hollywood or New York, in Stamford, Connecticut. And they made like schlocky B-D movies, like terrible movies that were direct-to-video. But they decided they wanted to get into the movie-making business, and this was their first movie. And it was on a shoestring budget for like $4 million. They went through the whole thing of how it got made, and it ended up making like $100 million in release in that first year, and it continues to make millions of dollars every year, because of the soundtrack and movies and that sort of thing.
It's kind of weird to me, like how amazingly popular that movie was.
So they talked a little bit about
kind of defined a generation. Like I feel like that movie is one that a lot of women in my generation just absolutely.
And that's a problem in a way,
right?
Because as the screenwriter, she came right out and said this, that the whole abortion subplot, or not even subplot, it's the plot, the whole plot about.
Well, it's kind of a subplot.
Well, I suppose the abortion subplot about the girl who needed to get an illegal abortion and almost died from it was a very intentional social engineering intent. Engineering might be a pejorative. To give her the benefit of that, her intent was to make a statement.
It was a statement
about a moral issue of concern to her, to change people's minds, and to do it sneakily. She came around and said, if I can wrap it up in pretty clothes and pretty people and people having sex, if I can get you into the theater to watch the sex and the pretty people, and then change your mind about abortion, that's what my intent is. She came right out and said that.
And I have to say that looking at my generation, I know a lot of even very pro-life people who love this movie and don't really seem to have a problem with the whole abortion plot.
Right. Even sometimes kind of apologize for it, like try to justify it. Yeah, it's
So I think that in terms of like actually changing the way people think about abortion, I think it actually probably succeeded. I think that movie was very influential as to how a lot of women in my generation perceive abortion.
Not just that, I think it also opened the door for Hollywood to be more openly pro-abortion.
I would agree with that too.
I mean, in fact, they didn't say this in the documentary, but I'm going to guess that one of the reasons that all the studios rejected it was
one of the reasons they couldn't make this movie
was the abortion plot. And
they kept saying it was because it was too girly and too dancey and too. I'm thinking that there
was girly dancing. I mean, Flashdance came out at that time. I mean, that was a girly dancey movie. I mean, there were plenty of those. What made this movie different from the other girly dancey movies is that it had this abortion plot that the producer screenwriter was intent on making sure was in the movie. This movie was not going to get made without it, for whatever personal reason she had for it. So that kind of bugged me a little about it. That was kind of disappointed me. I mean, I'm always interested in how movies get made and under what conditions, and especially movies that kind of come from nowhere and end up being a big, what was the flash in the pan? What was the spark? Who knows? It's very interesting. The location, it was set in the Catskills of New York,
mm-hmm.
but they couldn't make it in the Catskills because, again, they had such a low budget. It had to be summer, right? But you can't take over a big resort in the Catskills for 2 weeks in the summer to film this movie set at the time 20 years earlier, in the 60s.
That's a big budget.
That would have been a huge budget. So what they did is they found this resort in Virginia, in that corner of Virginia in the Blue Ridge near Kentucky and Tennessee down there.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Mountain Lake Lodge, and it is the last place in North America where the leaves change for the summer. Like it's statistically or something like that.
Okay.
And they rented it for 2 weeks in September. So after the summer's vacation season was over, and they rented it for 2 weeks there. And then they filmed the other half of the movie at this boys' camp that was the staff lodge area. And there's this iconic scene where they're dancing in the water, apparently, where he lifts her up over his head. In they're in the lake. Well, that lake is gone now. Like, the lake is drained. Like, if you go there today, there's no lake there anymore. It's just like there's actually the cinder blocks that he was standing on to film it are still there, but the lake is gone, which is
interesting.
Funny. So, is it worthwhile to watch the series? I hope so. I mean, another one of the episodes is on Die Hard. I'm actually looking forward to that.
Yeah, I saw the preview for the Die Hard one. I'm actually much more interested in that.
And I heard Mac and Catherine of Catholic in a Small Town talking about that. And some of the tidbits, so it makes me really want to watch it. In fact, that's why I cottoned onto that. So we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to watching some more of that. Have you been watching anything new this past week?
Let's see. I have been rereading the Dresden Files.
Yeah,
continue.
That. Yeah,
and watching. I don't think I watched anything this week.
Well,
other than Doctor Who with you.
Right. We watched a couple things together. The new Doctor Who episode, which you can see what I thought of that on Wednesday of this week. This will come out on Tuesday.
That was a very interesting episode.
Let's just give a quick preview. It was painful. Not one of their best. So,
there were some moments that sort of wanted to.
It started off pretty good. There were some good moments in the beginning, and it went off the rails by the end.
Yeah,
that was basically my take on it.
I just want to know how many different possible futures the Earth has in Doctor Who, because it seems like over the course of the series, and I've only watched New Who, like we've seen the end of the Earth like 50 different ways.
Okay, so.
Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but
this is kind of getting into territory that we cover in the Secrets of Doctor Who. But let me give you a quick, brief overview. They are potentially, if they're really doing this, they are completely changing the whole cosmology of the Whoniverse, how they approach the idea of the future and timelines. Like, in the past, all of these, it was accepted that over the billions of years of humanity's history, the Earth is basically dies out and restored multiple times. Okay, that humanity moves out into the stars, and Earth gets abandoned, and then rebuilt, and then abandoned and rebuilt, and
so you can have lots of different possible Earth futures.
Not just possible; these are the Earth futures. It's Earth's future over the course of millions of years, or billions, even. They kind of go with you can have all kinds of things happen. You can have all this stuff happen. But what this episode kind of went with is this is a possible future timeline, and we can rewrite this timeline and choose a different timeline based on our choices today.
So we're sort of doing multiverse theory now?
Now we're doing Back to the Future. Multiverse theory. I hope that's not what they're doing, because that completely, like I said, it completely changes everything that we've already established for Doctor Who. I mean, I'm a little. Every new producer with a new Doctor gets to put their own stamp on things. That's fine, but there's still parameters for it to be Doctor Who. You've got to still. I mean, they play fast and loose with the rules. I mean, they're pretty.
Right.
They're pretty loose with things.
And I sort of understand that this is not a series where consistency is
right. Consistent
at all very important continuity.
Right. Nevertheless, there are certain guidelines. There are certain walls that we don't pass through. At least we haven't until now, and they perhaps might be doing that, and that's a little worrisome. So I'm kind of curious to see where they go with this. Hopefully, it's just in service of this preachy message that they decided to give us. All right, so we should probably wrap it up there. It's been we're encroaching on 1 hour for what we've allotted for our episodes, so we'll cut it off there. Hopefully, we'll have some interesting stuff coming up in this next week. This coming weekend is the Klondike Derby, we call it, for the Scouts, which not only Ben will be going as a Weeblo, but the older girls will also be helping out as Scouts, as a BSA Scouts. what used to be Boy Scouts is now includes girls. Again, we got to find a term for this that works. Anyway, so and then some other stuff we got coming up. So that you look forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Raising the Bets, including Katie T, Lisa S, Joe S, Mark, and Barb G. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Raising the Bets and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. If you've got any comments, if you'd like to discuss anything that we've talked about, you can go to sqpn.com/bets, that's BETTS, or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send us an email to bets, BETTS, at sqpn.com. And we'll have any relevant links for our discussion in our show notes on sqpn.com. Remember to go to our Facebook page and like the episode of Raising the Bets. Retweet it if you see it on Twitter at SQPN and leave comments. All of the social media engagement helps us to get the word out and get the show in front of more people, and we really appreciate that. Until next time, I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Thank you for listening to Raising the Bets on StarQuest.